Welcome back to Recap City. Today I'm going to show you a 2019 action-adventure film, called Triple Frontier. Spoilers ahead, sit back and be entertained. The movie opens up in Colombia. A group of police led by Private Santiago, also known as Pope, had come to ambush a cartel. When they arrived, they tell the cartel members to surrender for they were outnumbered. But the cartel group sent a response by blowing up their vehicles. The police then engaged in a heavy gunfire. The shootout between the police and the cartel gang was so intense. Private Santiago then ordered one of his men to blow up the cartel building. As they got inside the building, they arrested everyone that was still alive. They got hold of the gang members and questioned them concerning their boss, Lorea. But they wouldn't give out any information. Unfortunately, one of their members snitched on them. He tells the police officer in charge that Lorea was out in the jungle, where he could store his money far away from the bank. After the police officer had gotten the information, he kills the cartel members. While arresting the people that were present in the house, a young girl escapes. Pope then chases after her, after a long chase through the streets. He lost track of her. He then calls the police officer in charge to tell him that the girl had escaped. Later on, Pope goes secretly to the girl's hideout. It was later revealed that the young girl, whose name was Giovanna, was actually Pope's informant. She tells Pope that her brother was arrested and she has to get him out. Pope tells her that there was nothing he could do. She then tells Pope that she knew the whereabouts of Lorea, because she was promoted to deliver his van full of money. She tells him that Lorea lived in a remote house in the jungle, and his house was a safe where he kept all his money. She also tells him that the police was also working for Lorea and they had been fooling Pope since. The movie switches to Ironhead, a military officer who was giving a motivational speech to rookies. After the speech, he meets up with his old buddy, Pope. Pope tells him about his plans of raiding Lorea. Ironhead agreed to accompany him only if he recruited Redfly and the rest of their friends. In the next scene, we could see Redfly, who is a realtor. He meets up with Pope. After the two friends had exchanged pleasantries, Pope tells him of the job to bring down Martin Lorea, the cartel lord. Redfly tells Pope that he is retired and he was the only person looking out for his daughter. Pope then tells him that he could earn a lot of money from the job. He then urges Redfly to take a look at his plan. After much persuasion, Redfly tells him that he needed to pick up his daughter, Tessa. As they were driving, Pope walks him through the plan. He tells Redfly that Lorea's house holds an estimate of $75 million and they didn't have to do much cause his agency there would take care of Lorea, giving them 25% of the money. Redfly then tells him that he would think about it. Pope meets up with Benny, Ironhead's brother. While he was preparing for his fight, he also got to tell Fish, his old friend, about the Lorea job. He tells Fish that he needed him for the job because he was a good pilot. But Fish declined, saying his wife just gave birth and he didn't have a license. After much persuasion, he finally agreed to join in the mission. At the fight arena, Redfly joins the rest of the crew. He asks Pope about his entry plan. Pope then tells him that they would enter the country as powerline consultants. There was no facial recognition so they wouldn't get caught. In the next scene, Pope and the rest of the crew traveled to Lorea's hideout. As they got there, they began surveying his house. Pope tells the crew that Lorea's family was the answer to their problems. He goes on to explain that Lorea was devout and he sends majority of his guards to escort his family to church every Sunday after the 6 a.m. mass, which leaves Lorea and 3 guards alone in the house. And that is when they have to strike. He tells them that Giovanna is going to record the inside of Lorea's house, so they would know what they are dealing with it. As they were communicating, Giovanna shows up in a black van. As she goes inside, she records the house as she delivered Lorea's money. Later that night, while the crew were drinking, Redfly asked Pope if the local agency were ready to take down Lorea. Pope tells them that he had cut off the agency. They could easily handle Lorea and keep the money for themselves without involving the agency. They were all annoyed at him because he lied to them. Pope still managed to convince them that they could keep the money for themselves. After they had all agreed to do the work alone, Redfly tells the crew that they had 40 minutes on Sunday morning to get the work done before the family returns back from church. He tells them that they needed another van to transport them. Pope goes over to meet Giovanna. He tells her that he needed her to bring a van into Lorea's compound on Sunday morning. She tells him that if they find out she was involved, she and her brother would be dead. Pope then promised her that he would get them out of the country with $2 million if she would get an extra van inside the compound. She then agrees. In the next scene, Pope tells the crew that Giovanna had agreed to bring an extra van and she even gave him the footage of Lorea's house. He tells them that the idea of the operation was to pin the job on a local rival gang. Redfly then reminds the crew that they can't go back to their normal life after the operation because what they are about to do is illegal and they do not have the flag on their shoulders. On the day of the operation, Giovanna fulfills her promise by bringing in an extra van. After the family had gone to church, the team infiltrates the house. They subdued all the guards they met on the way. But they couldn't find Lorea and the money. Pope then noticed that the money was hidden inside the walls of the house. Filled with excitement, the team packs up a lot of money and even found more than they expected. Because the money was all over the house. Redfly fixates on the money, telling the crew to load more up. They tell him there wasn't enough time and they had plenty to fill their pockets. He still insisted that they loaded up more money until they became angry and tell him that they had to leave immediately. Pope tells the crew that he needed a final sweep for Lorea. While searching for Lorea, Lorea ambushed the team and wounds Ironhead, before Pope goes over to kill Lorea. As the crew dressed up Ironhead's wound, Pope tells them that they should all take a backpack filled with money and head out through the jungle before the first shift of guards returned back home. But Redfly insisted that they take on the guards and proceed with the initial plan. As the guards returned back home, they took them out, burned down Lorea's house, and got away with $250 million in cash, although they left Lorea's family alive. They met up with Giovanna and her brother at an airfield. Ironhead's contact then arrived with a helicopter that would transport them and the money. Fish tells them that the helicopter won't hold their weight with all that money and probably wouldn't reach the necessary altitude to pass the Andes mountain. Redfly, unwilling to let any money go, tells Fish that they should give it a try. They then load the money inside a net, while the helicopter carried it. As they got to the border, they dropped Giovanna and her brother. They were the only people linking them to the robbery, so Redfly questioned them about the team's identity, but they claimed they knew nothing about the crew. Pope then gives them $3 million and a visa to Sydney, cutting off every ties with them. Redfly then tells Pope that they should have finished off Giovanna and her brother because they were consequences to this kind of missions. But Pope assures him that they weren't lying. As they got to the mountains, in an attempt to fly over, the money's weight wouldn't let them cross over. Fish then tells them to reduce some money. After letting go of $50 million, the helicopter still wouldn't cross over, as one of the gear boxes got broken, causing the helicopter to lose altitude. Fish then tells them that they needed to release all the money so they would crash land, if not they would all die. They then crash on a cocaine farm after they had let the money loose. The farmers were hostile to them because they thought the crew were DEA agents. Pope tells them that they just wanted to take their money and leave, nothing more. When one of the villagers seemingly reached out for a weapon, Redfly opened fire on them, and kills several of them. Pope then go over to compensate the village head and then pay for mules that would help them transport the money through the forest. They transported the money through the forest and even rivers. When they got to a sloppy hill, one of the mules lost balance and fell over, making them lose the whole bag the mule was carrying. Redfly then complained that they lost a lot of money, before getting into an argument with Pope that he needed to set his priorities straight. As they found a spot to camp, Pope apologizes to Redfly for the little argument they had, while Benny and the rest of the crew burned down some money to keep them warm as the crew laughed over it. The next day, while transporting the money at the mountaintop, a shootout took place between the team and two villagers who seek to avenge their family's death. Redfly managed to kill one of the shooters before getting shot in the head by the other villager. Pope then kills the other villager. The crew were devastated as they lost Redfly, then they wrapped up his body as they proceeded to the ocean. Benny then volunteers to check up on the getaway boats. As he got back, he tells them that Lorea's men were waiting for them on the other side. Pope then tells the crew that they had to go through Lorea's men because Redfly died for the money, and they were not going to leave the money behind. The crew then talks sense into him, saying Redfly didn't die for the money but because of the money, and the only thing that matters now is to transport Redfly's body. They then decide to carry a backpack filled with money and then throw the rest away in a ravine. They decided to move quietly with Redfly's body through the town, but they were caught and got themselves involved in a hot chase which resulted to a heavy shootout between the team and Lorea's men. After they had successfully escaped Lorea's men, the team got out with $5 million in a boat and also Redfly's body. Later on, as the team got to the lawyer that would transfer them their shares of $1 million each, they all volunteered to send the money to Redfly's family. The team then bids their farewell as they separates. Ironhead then asked Pope what he would do now. Pope tells him he would go to Australia to look for Giovanna, who made a whole lot money than the rest of them. As they bid their farewell, Ironhead gives Pope a set of coordinates which mapped out the location of the ravine where they dumped the money. The end. If you like this video, please support by subscribing. Goodbye till we meet again.